My name is Kyle Cherek, and welcome to the Madison College Culinary Chef Series, presented by Volrath. To my right is Phillip Foss, who is the chef of El Ideas and the first breakthrough food truck of Chicago, but we'll talk about that later. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for coming. How many of you, we always do this, a show of hands, how many of you have eaten at La Bernadette? No, I'm kidding. How many of you have eaten at El Ideas, visited for dinner? All right, good. Well, yeah, we'll hand out.
A lot of places to go from here.
Yeah, exactly. We have tons to cover. It's a Madison crowd, so don't take it.
That's okay.
Yeah, don't take it personally.
Not at all.
How many of you have read or seen the fantastic graphic novel that Chef Foss has done with his cousin, Tim Foss, who will be illustrating our conversation tonight in real time? Yeah. This fantastic graphic novel or comic called Life in L. Well, nice one. Yeah, cool.
Nice.
I've read it several times, and I mean this in the best way. It's a quick read, not because of its brevity, but because of the intensity of the book. And it's not the kind of thing that you read slowly. You're like, yeah. Here we go.
I feel we broke open a genre with it.
No question.
When I originally started out writing it with my cousin, I think a major inspiration was Harvey Picar's American Splendor, and the way he took kind of the dark matter and dark subject matter of himself and turned that into a comic and into eventually a movie about with a good amount of humor sprinkled into the darkness, which gives it. When you find the comical aspect of ourselves, I think you can touch a funny bone.
Did you drink as much orange soda as he did?
What's that?
Did you drink as much orange soda as he did?
No, definitely not.
Good. I'm glad to hear. So Chef and I share one thing in common. Actually, two. We're both males. I just turned 50. You're about to turn 50. Nope. But we're both from Milwaukee.
That's true. Milwaukee.
That's right.
Algonquin.
Nobody there says it that way. Those of us outside of the city sometimes do.
Yep, cheesehead all the way.
Yeah. But you first really made your name in New York at I'm spacing on the
Le Cirque
Le Cirque,
restaurant.
thank you, Le Cirque, yeah. And then, you can tell your story. So you 5 years at Le Cirque, which is not a small amount of time to spend in one of the most edifying, high-pressure, creative, and French codified.
It's pretty interesting. The story that got me there is certainly interesting. I never really had any ambitions after high school. My guidance counselor actually told my mom not to expect me to amount to anything. And, as awful as that was, you couldn't...
And yet you're nearly 6 feet.
Well, you couldn't really blame her, right. You couldn't really blame her. I didn't have much of a track record. And I found kitchens as a way to kind of escape and hide. And, somebody tricked me into believing I could make really good money in kitchens as a chef, and so I went into cooking school. But I started in New York, and I pretty much got fired after graduating from the Culinary Institute of America. I wound up getting fired for my first 5 jobs in New York. And
I didn't know that.
I did. And Le Cirque was really, once I got in there, it was pretty much, this is it. If I don't make it, I'm just going to have to figure something else out.
So how do you parlay from CIA, and that's when it was up in the Hudson Valley, I'm assuming, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So great culinary school, not unlike this one. But storied culinary school. They had the Escoffier dining room and things like that. Probably at the time when you were there, maybe had it flipped to Bocuse?
No. As a matter of fact, Paul Bocuse's son was going to this school. His first visit was while I was there.
Wow.
And nobody in the school knew who he was. It was as a matter of fact, they implemented a culinary, who's who in culinary on account of my class.
Yeah. Not knowing who.
Not knowing who Paul Bocuse was.
Yeah. You graduate and then you're fired from 5 jobs in New York.
Right.
Cooking, I presume. Yeah. Okay, so it wasn't like dry cleaner in Starbucks. It was actually in kitchens.
No.
So how do you parlay that great success right into then a job at Le Cirque where people, I'm sure that they made it self-evident to you every day at Le Cirque that there's 40 people waiting for your job.
Yeah, and I think that part of it was at that point I had nothing left to lose. And I think also combine that with the fact by that time I had learned enough about cooking, even through getting fired, that maybe it was time.
Fail again.
Yeah, until all of a sudden, like, you learn how to play guitar. Like, you don't get it until one day you kind of get it. So I think it was like all the things were falling into place at the right time. But mostly it was I loved like the chaotic and the yelling and the grease flying around and just like getting hit with like everybody coming in wanting great food. And it requires you to really step up your game. And it gave me a real sense of purpose and passion.
For those of you that don't know about Le Cirque, consummate restaurateur Ciro Macchioni, yeah. I always want to say macaroni, but it's Macchioni. And of a certain era in New York dining, as the lay and laws of the Upper East Side started dropping away, the Lutèces and the La Caravelles and things like that, Le Cirque took on that mantle. So the who's who of the Eastern Seaboard and of really international travelers that came to New York would have dinner at Le Cirque. This was somewhere around Jean-Georges' height and things like that, but New York's dining scene wasn't as diverse as it is now. We really can't even imagine a time where there were like 5 places. And that's where if you were a power broker, if you were a celebrity, if you were internationally wealthy or some combination of all of those, you only went to those restaurants. And that's where Chef was cooking at the time.
It was a phenomenal experience, to be at this restaurant and to learn French cooking from French chefs and, to see what goes into it. And, to be able to rise through the ranks, I think that was the thing that really I was so lucky to be able to stick around that long.
Yeah.
Because it wound up opening so many doors for me everywhere I went after that.
Sure. And then you continued to cook in great restaurants. And then you took what I would call a left turn, and you went on a walkabout.
Well, I eloped with a girl when I moved to New York City at the great age of 22.
Like you do.
Just the right time to get married in a guy's life, moving to New York City. And, obviously that marriage kind of fell apart. And when it did, it was really, I kind of saw it as an opportunity to, go and see the world. And it was a literal epiphany. Like, I remember waiting for the train one morning. I'm like, oh, I need to leave New York, my wife, and go to Europe. And it took me a calendar year to do it, but that's what I did.
Wow.
Traveled around Europe, including doing a stagiaire with a 2-star Michelin chef in the south of France, which had always been a career goal. And but mostly it was about traveling through Europe, and that just kind of put the bug in me that once you kind of go out and risk it all and see the world and not know where you're going to be next, it just makes you want to do that kind of again.
Right. Well, and we talked about this sort of off mic, where one of the amazing things about the culinary world and chefing at the level that you had at Le Cirque is you've got that in your back pocket.
Yeah.
So you could present yourself at great kitchens all over Europe, and that chef network, certainly within the French hegemony, I guess is the only word that comes to mind, right? We respect that. Like, you're going to be at least this good, and you're trained this way, so we accept you.
It's very much like that. It really is. And that's the importance of getting into good places after you graduate, because that is the point about furthering your career is, the where you go becomes your narrative.
Yeah.
And if you go to great places, then people are going to see that you care about doing great things, and you're going to become more desirable for them to bring on.
But what I like about you is then you didn't go to great places. Not that you cooked in dumps, but you didn't go to the places, as I said before, that, when food writers fill in their byline, they're like, oh, and he cooked here, and he cooked here, and he cooked here. And you went to a bunch with people like you, where?
Yeah, after that, right, exactly. The first time I moved to Chicago after coming back from Europe, this was in '99.
Was that Lockwood?
It was before Lockwood, actually.
Okay.
That was a restaurant called Bistro Margot.
Oh, yeah,
I actually
Bistro Margot is
started with
fantastic.
True back in the '99, and that didn't go well at all for me. Working in the kind of structure of a Let Us Entertain You restaurant was just, Le Cirque, like I said, was chaos, and I kind of preferred the lack of structure.
A kind of Italian chaos, and True is like...
It was very disciplined, and they did a great job and everything, but, so it took me a really long time to like I had these expectations. Oh, I got this training from Le Cirque. Now it's going to be easy to go anywhere and get a good job. But you know, like the truth of the matter is like you know, it's hard finding the right fit and the right, you know, finding the right job. So I wound up at Bistro Margot for 2 years. I loved it, had a great time.
Chicago icon, absolutely.
Yeah, and by the time,
beloved.
After 2 years, he wanted Joe Doppes was the owner of that restaurant, and he wanted to grow the place. And I personally just, like, I didn't want to do that, and I wanted to travel more at that point.
Just want to make escargot,
and
man.
my plan was to go to Hawaii, and like I wanted to go somewhere warm for a while, and then September 11th happened, and I just really kind of looked at things again. I'm like, why would I just want to do that? Why wouldn't I want to go bigger? You know, give me a break.
Yeah.
So I decided to go to Brazil. Spent the next 6 months
also
down
warm.
there. All warm. It was the time of my life. I was saying to you earlier. You know, I feel like I went to Brazil a boy and I came back a man. It was just, you know,
again, like you do. Yeah.
I mean, but it was like it was so much focus on the career up to that point that I realized I hadn't even really done any living per se.
Right.
You know, and just getting out. And so I spent 6 months in Brazil. I worked at a restaurant up there. It wound up getting fired after a month because I could barely speak Portuguese. I tried. Then from there went to Hawaii, spent a couple years on Maui.
Where your Portuguese was impeccable.
It was. Did no good, but worked with the Four Seasons there.
Yeah.
And then from there, my brother was getting married in Israel, so I got on an airplane, flew out to Israel, and decided to stay there for a couple of years, and worked with the King David in Jerusalem there.
Yeah.
And then from there to Bermuda, spent about a year on Bermuda, got remarried in Israel, and then moved to Chicago in 2007, and that was with the Palmer House in
that was
Palmer
Lockwood.
House Hilton, Lockwood restaurant in the Palmer House.
So you were at the Lockwood, and I told you we're going to cover everything.
Okay.
So there were two chefs that were having a feud, and you were very active on social media. And your response of conciliatory, hey everybody, we're all brothers in this together, was, why can't we just smoke a bong together?
It was kind of a play off of Rodney King's, plea for peace back in the riots. And, it was really kind of harmless, but
turned into something,
Well, at that point, I think I had really kind of ruined my stay at the hotel. I think they were fed up with me at that point because I was a very outgoing and, when social media became a thing, like this was the infancy of it, and you could get away with so much more, and you learned what you could get away with and not. And I wound up getting in tons of trouble. Facebook, I got suspended because of Facebook, fired because of Twitter.
Yeah.
I had a blog, where I was attacking food critics, and just all I wanted to do was create kind of mayhem and be a disruption.
But when I look back at what you were doing, and you were an early adept. Now all that we just take for granted. It's de rigueur, and you've done this great graphic novel and things like that. You were basically 3 years or 3 years ahead of your time. And, there are other chefs in Chicago, like Graham was here last month, and he did so. I mean, there are other chefs that were doing the same thing. So, like, everybody really you were just prescient, that's all.
I really was focused on making noise, like I was in a hotel, and I only realized, we really had kind of a bad location, and I didn't feel anybody was just going to be walking in off the street to check out the restaurant. So I really felt it like if I made a noise with my voice, like I started a blog, and like through social media, I learned that I loved writing, and I loved writing about food and about being a chef. And
you had your sandwich board, and you were pounding it on the street.
And the restaurant loved that because, it got people talking about us. And, then but it was kind of like feeding a beast. And all of a sudden this beast was, which is my ego really, is getting to be this really blown up thing. And, all of a sudden, I've got two babies at that point, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And all of a sudden, this little tweet about smoking a bong winds up getting me fired. So, here I go from a 6-figure salary with full benefits and a retirement account to no severance, and you're out on the streets. And see how cute your antics are now, mother effer.
Well, you ended up triumphing, and we still remember it. So it worked out. Not that you just could flip a switch. So your next pivot was to take on the city of Chicago and its antiquated laws to serve dignified people good food from the side of a truck.
So while I had this idea for a meatball concept, and while I was on my first suspension from the Facebook for a Facebook post, I was like, this might go down faster than I thought, and I might need to get a job.
Yeah.
So like a food truck is a lot less expensive to get started than an actual brick and mortar restaurant.
And I just have to pause you. Look at the majesty. If everyone could just, this is happening. You are
Holy
at the
shit.
same time.
That's so cool.
So awesome. Please follow me around for the rest of my life. So great. Yeah.
So cool.
Anyway, sorry, Chef.
That's okay.
Yeah, go on.
So the idea of doing a food truck was a lot less expensive. So I started looking around the city, and I realized that there weren't any chef food trucks. This was back in 2009. And at this point, food trucks were like, I know now it's like every city's got food trucks. But back then, it was really just kind of getting going.
Yeah.
Not quite, but there was nothing in Chicago. And I looked into the reason why. And it turns out that a long time ago, there was some sort of a fight. And, there's this rule that says you can't have a food truck 200 feet away from, it has to be more than 200 feet away from an existing restaurant, and that you can't cook anything on a food truck. So exactly. So everything's got to be pre-made. It's basically a warmie. You can have a warming box.
Yeah.
So
that's what I'm saying. We're going to go to the symphony, but there'll be no instruments. The musicians will be there.
It's kind of like that. It's a great comparison. Yeah. So I started cold calling aldermen, and finally got one to pick up the phone and take a meeting. And she's like, "Yeah, let's get this going." And she took it to City Hall, and I met another chef, Matt Maroney, who had an ordinance already drafted, and we kind of combined forces. Now, the Hilton really wants nothing to do with this. The Hilton doesn't care about the fact, but I'm working for them at the same time.
Right.
So when I got fired, it just made logical sense to give the food truck a chance. Yeah. And through coincidence, like sheer luck, I found somebody who would rent me just like a little, what is typically known as a roach coach.
Yeah, I've seen pictures. Yeah.
You usually see them at construction sites. They've got a little warmer in the back of the truck. And then I was
kind of that diamond steel box on the back of a pickup truck, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I was lucky enough to find the kitchen, which is now L Ideas, which happened. I just wound up just getting the greatest deal to use a kitchen, because you need a licensed kitchen to launch a food truck. So basically, I was able to rent the roach coach. So basically, with no startup capital at all, I was able to launch a business. And the food truck came to be known as the Meaty Balls Mobile.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it just rolls right off your tongue. But more importantly, what was your motto? What was your thesis? What was your great endeavor with the Meaty Balls?
Have meaty balls. Our mission statement was to get our balls in the mouth of every Chicagoan.
Exactly. And one of the more famous balls was the sweaty balls.
Sweaty balls. We had a lot of fun with the play on words. We had golf balls, which were like a New Orleans, Gulf of Mexico kind of inspiration.
Sure, yeah.
We had, I don't know if you remember that year that Jay Cutler kind of blew the championship game where he didn't come out because he had an injury or something.
No.
So that day we served, it was just bread with nothing in it. It was called No Balls.
That's so meta.
We had it was a lot of fun. It was and like for somebody who had just been in a hotel, I was having the time of my life selling $8 sandwiches. You know?
Well, what I see, and I want to hopefully unveil for the audience, which is why I'm asking you to go so deep in your story, is that you've had these hills and valleys where it's like you would descend into play. And you probably didn't know it at the time, but it was the most healthy thing for you to feed your creative side. So while you're cooking at the King David or cooking in Hawaii or cooking you're not, where you're not at Le Cirque.
Right.
You're not at True. You're not towing that line, but you're feeding something else.
Yeah, it was a very, a lonely period a lot of times doing that,
Sure.
and just like being in the middle of nowhere and trying to appreciate just being in the middle of nowhere. When you've got a career and you've trained so hard to do something was easy. It was not easy, but as I've gotten older, I've realized how important and how much a part of who I am today was on account of stepping away from the culinary arts for a period of time and focusing on nurturing my own sense of adventure, and and the artistry kind of came with that.
To hang on to that in the midst of self-doubt in those dark moments at 3 a.m. when you're beginning to roast the shoulders for the meatballs that you'd be serving to people at lunch the following day.
Right. It was a complete up and down from the way I used to be as a chef, where you're preparing fine dining food and you're done with work at 1 o'clock in the morning. Now I was like starting work at 3 o'clock in the morning. Some nights not going home, and just like sleeping on a cardboard table, in the kitchen. And I mean, when it's a labor of love, and if you really want something to succeed, no matter what it is, you've got to be willing to put yourself kind of on the line like that.
Yeah, risk it to that level.
Yeah, you got to believe in, and it really does, all of that, it kind of is centered on a belief in yourself, like, believing in yourself through everything, no matter what anybody says, even if you've got to make up a completely ridiculous narrative to do that.
Well, so the universe then bestows you this great golden egg in the kitchen that is now El Ideas.
Correct.
So I don't want to spoil this great story about the health inspector, but if you would, please, Chef.
Sure. So, we were at the food truck at that time for about 9 months, and I had expanded from 1 truck to 2 trucks to 3 trucks as I started seeing how long it was, how many sandwich I needed to sell to kind of make up for my salary.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it gets very hard to breathe. And I remember this, I'd been thinking of new meatball ideas and with fun names, and I was driving home from work one day, and I realized like the well was dry. If you ever saw Bing John Malkovich, like he goes into his portal and he's Malkovich, everybody sees his Malkovich. For me, it was just like balls. And I completely kind of abandoned, my fine dining chef. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't think I was going to be doing anything but meatballs for the rest of my life.
Right.
And
I can still do an intermezzo, ladies and gentlemen.
I did not think at all that I was going to go back to it. And it was a couple days later, we were getting a health inspection to get the license for the kitchen turned into our name. And we get done with the entire inspection. And food trucks are really new to Chicago back then, so she wasn't even sure what kind of a license to give the kitchen.
The inspector.
Yeah, and then she's looking over at this area where we used to just count our money and bag up chips. And she's like, oh, you got this space over here. You could open a restaurant. You could have a restaurant here, so I'll give you a restaurant license. And it was like lightning hitting me. I was like, oh my God. Like
9 months later, literally a pregnancy.
I thought about that? So it literally began with I brought a dining room table from home, and it literally began with the idea of like, this is just going to create a little additional income.
Yeah.
More importantly, just going to keep my creative juices going.
A pop-up in your own commissary.
Yeah. That's exactly how it began.
Yeah.
And
the name El Ideas because you like puns.
Well, it actually started with you were going to have multiple food truck concepts, and the idea was to get them under a net name. So it was going to be Elevated Ideas in lunch cooking, and elevated being because our trains are elevated in Chicago. But then L also has, and L Ideas it was going to be that for short. And there are many different definitions of L in different languages, and that I liked, and it just felt right. And so as soon as I knew I was doing the restaurant, the idea of doing more food trucks, done with food trucks, and little by little, L became a bigger part of the revenue, and then I got robbed by a bookkeeper, and then
$30,000 for her wedding.
Yeah, pretty much.
But the good part about that is you got a zero interest loan from someone who believed in you and your food.
This is true. An angel investor kind of came in like right as we were going down, because like I didn't know what was going on. I was also going through a divorce.
Right.
You know, and the same week we opened up El Ideas, I
separated
from my ex-wife. You know, and so like I'm going from transitioning into being a single dad on the fly, as well as opening up a restaurant.
Right.
And you know, it was already taking a lot of the heart and soul out of me.
Yeah.
You know, at least physically and emotionally. And then to have that happen on top of it was, you know, it just pulled the carpet out from under you. But you know, when I opened up El, like the concept is so kind of out there. I called it the Costner Project, with the idea you build it and they'll come. You know, and you know, like we've kind of held on by the seat. Like I feel like there's a mission. We're there. There's a reason that we continue, and we haven't gone under yet.
It has that sense when you all go, and I so hope you do, that you're part of something bigger than you. And bigger than Philip, quite frankly. Because it's in a neighborhood that is not a neighborhood you place a restaurant. Douglas Park. And it's not like you've created a neighborhood boon around. I mean, most of the stuff that was there before is
still there. Yeah, there's not no fear of gentrification or anything to the area. It's a dead-end street, and you know, when people ask me a lot of times on the street where my restaurant is, I tell them it's a part of town you've got no business coming to.
Right.
You know, except to eat with us. You know, and that's fine. But it's, you know, it's
our Lyft
safe,
driver asked us if we were
mistaken
twice. I'm like, no, we're going to like, no, we're not mistaken. Just please. I mean, I got a little snippy with him because I was like, who cares if I am? Just drive.
People are shocked to see where we are. It's totally safe. You know, and it's kind of a play on the words. But we like that people feel a little bit of fear coming in. It actually puts them. It does. You know, it puts everybody in a place where you actually are more open to having a good time when you have a sense of abandon for where you're going. You don't have control over this. You have to give yourself up to the scenario, and
it's a surrender.
In that way, I feel like it's bigger than me. You know, the restaurant does that more than I do it, for sure.
So the next stage of the story is that in 2015, a writer for Eater, who's now an even more influential writer, and his editor, who's now the editor for food for The New Yorker, published a story saying no one in America is cooking food like Phillip Foss.
I think like when I saw the headline, I dropped. I couldn't believe it. It was mind blowing. Yeah.
So take us through a service at El very quickly, and then I'm going to get down to some of the rest of your story, and then eventually we are going to cook, and you'll all get samples. But this series is founded on learning the stories of chefs and their path for those of you that are interested in particularly the culinary students of this school, and that's why it's being recorded so that these stories can play forward. And when you're a student and you're beginning that path, these sorts of stories don't come to you. You don't just get them from reading about, you know, Philip in whatever magazine. So this is the true heart stuff. But more importantly, the people that I've curated for this series are the folks that can tell these sorts of stories. Because there's a lot of other chefs that could say, well, I was here, and then I went here, and then I went here. And you just see the walking up the ladder. And I really like cooking French food, or I really like cooking this food. And you're like, well, that was interesting. Now we're done. Those aren't the folks that I've been drawn to. Those aren't the folks that are my friends that have asked for the series to be here, and that's not what this series is about. So take us through a service at El Ideas, because it's unlike any dinner that anyone's ever had.
So you come into the restaurant, music, we have a very eclectic playlist. You know, we got about 50 different playlists, a lot of hip hop, a lot of quirky songs, and you know, I'm really proud of the list and the vibe that we create with just our music. But you come into the room and everybody arrives for dinner at the same time, 7 p.m. on weeknights, and you know, everybody sits down. That's a BYO restaurant, so you're able to save a little money on that and bring your own bottles, and we help you kind of pair it up through the meal. But when people arrive, you get no menus. Everybody arrives at the same time, so it's a dinner party feel is what it is.
And they've paid already.
There's no check. There's no check at the end of the night. Yeah, it's all taken care of beforehand as if you're going to a concert or something.
Right.
And then when you get started, it's a very communal idea. There's no walls in the kitchen, so I'll come up at the beginning of the night and tell people, introduce the team, and tell people they're allowed to come back to the kitchen and hang out with us and see what we're doing. And the idea is just to kind of get to know each other a little bit, because it takes on the feel of a dinner party. Mm-hmm. And any dinner party is more fun if people get to know each other. So
right.
We encourage interaction with guests. Guests come back and hang out with us. And each of the chefs who come up to describe, whoever's. So we'll drop, and then each of the guests is getting the same thing. So we'll bring you out for course 1 at the same time, and then 2, 3, and whichever chef is describing it, that's the chef who creates it. So it's a very small team, just myself and 2 chefs, 1 server, 1 dishwasher, 28 guests at a time, maximum. And the feel takes on a fun feel. And the way we get it started is probably sets the tone more than anything. Is the first course, we don't give guests any silverware. We just make everybody pick up their pick up their plate, put their faces into it, and lick everything up off the plate. And just that very act alone does exactly that. It gets the most stoic person in the dining room to laugh at themselves. And as soon as you set the tone and like that, everybody all of a sudden is ready to have a great time.
And crucially, the plates are as clear as Philip's glasses. So while you're doing this, you're looking at the person.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, I mean that's a really important point.
We suggest looking lovingly, make loving faces at each other while you're licking, all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that sets the tone. How many courses? How does the night?
Usually we're about 11 courses right now. Every night kind of is its own.
It's a journey.
It is. Yeah. It is. It depends on the people in the room. Sometimes they're more reserved and want to stay in the kitchen, in the seats.
Yeah.
Other times everybody's back in the kitchen for every course, and when you talk about it being bigger than me, I hardly feel like I even need to be in me to make it happen.
Right.
Like the food just kind of comes naturally now.
Yeah.
For me, it's just mostly about enjoying the experience a lot myself, and I find if I enjoy it and I'm having a good time, everybody else tends to as well.
Yeah. So but in that setting, so you're open Tuesday through Saturday.
Yes.
And you're Phillip Foss of L-Ideas. People come for you. They come. They come for the food and the experience.
Majority of people just have heard about the restaurant. Very few people I think come.
Really?
They're my favorite people who come. But no, I don't feel like a lot of people come just because it's me.
Yeah.
And it's not just, and I think that is kind of, in my eyes, for me personally, I think the best way that I created L is that it is more of a show than just about me. Mm-hmm. So all of the chefs that we have working there, each of them get opportunity to test their own cuisine. It's not a really high pressure kitchen like a lot of kitchens are, where there's a lot of coordination. So as a means of creating extra challenges for the chefs, they're allowed to put their own food on the menu.
Right.
And through giving them that opportunity and having them actually having to describe the food, almost every single night, at least one guest will come to the kitchen and tell me, their favorite dish of the night, except for the one that you guys are trying tonight, is almost every night.
Wasn't yours?
Yeah, almost every night somebody will. And in the beginning it used to hurt me, but now I'm so proud of the fact that we're because where do young cooks get the opportunity to actually try their cooking?
Right. And they're not a cog in a wheel where you're the saucier, you do the sauces, you're the saucier, you do the sauces, you're garde manger, this is what you do. They're a chapter in the book.
Not only that, but because they have to be up in front talking to people about it, they are way more accountable for it.
Sure.
If it's not good, they're gonna. You see the people eating it. There's so much more ownership in that, as opposed to him doing my food, and he's more likely to he or she's more likely to make a mistake with mine because they don't have their own heart and their own name on the line with it.
Right, and they can't. There's no separation. I was going to use the word hiding, but it isn't that, but there's no separation.
No separation.
So the genesis of my question with that is, are there ever nights, because you and your team have to be on.
Right.
Are there ever nights where you wish you could just cook, but not be presenting and show?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. But, like any performer in any play, the show's got to go on.
Show
and
must
like,
go on.
I mean, like, you got to be very fluid, but you got to keep on this smiley face. And, I do a lot of meditations these days, and there's one meditation that says you can't be sad with a smile on your face. I'm like, God, that's so not true. And it gets me mad when I hear that. Like I can smile through anything.
Yeah. There is something to that, though, in my own experience with
there is truth.
With Wisconsin footy. I mean, with Wisconsin footy, there were times, like I had a kidney stone.
Yeah.
We're filming.
Yeah.
So
right,
what?
Right.
I'm literally coming down with the flu. It's coming out of everywhere but my ears. We're filming. You gotta, you just.
People are paying a lot of money for their experience, and it is my responsibility to take that very seriously, no matter what's going on in my life.
Exactly.
Just like anybody with a business, I feel, like the business is almost like a needy child. Restaurant's like a needy child, like it. If you don't pay attention to it, it's going to make you pay.
So, you hit a existential speed bump.
Yeah.
While cooking at L, some time ago, and again the golden nugget that you get to drive away from this place with in your hand was this terrific book, Life in L,
right.
and the changes that overtook you in your life,
right.
and then you pretty much had to surrender to. So talk about that.
Yeah, the story, so it really began, I had an incident with one of my chefs where I grabbed his face as a parent would do to a kid and really, really angry. But it was, obviously you're not supposed to do that. And I wound up getting kind of locked out of my restaurant by my team. They said if I were to come into the kitchen, the entire team would walk out. And so, I live above my restaurant, which has been awesome for every single solitary day almost. But
except for those 2 nights.
2 nights were the lowest points of my career, absolutely excruciating. And I felt like I was treated unfairly, but at the same point, I wound up taking that initiative to enroll in anger management and to start looking into where that's coming from and figuring out what I can do with it. And really right into that same process, or very shortly after, we had a family reunion, and I happened to have met my cousin there. And we got to talking a little bit, and at this point, one of the things in my anger management was to back off of social media. So in the process, I started writing a memoir, because, if I'm not going to be on social media, I'm a chef, I have this restaurant, how I'm going to fall off of the map. And
right.
I'd already received a couple James Beard nominations at that point, but the memoir was getting really long, and it had a really long way to go, and who the hell is going to read that many words about a chef? And then I met Tim, and while we were at that family reunion, he had told me that he had just finished studying comic art, and thought, wouldn't it be cool if we were to do like a culinary comic kind of a thing? And very slowly over the course of 3 years, we really started to put it together and weed it out and work it out and understand what it is that we were after, and little by little we put together a story that kind of talks about the side of a chef that you don't see. Everybody sees the character on television, whether it's Gordon Ramsay or you see the passion that goes into the food, and you see the anger that's kind of a side effect from it. And we see great food, so we justify that anger. But at the end of the day, I realized that there was a whole side of myself that I didn't feel in touch with. I knew my restaurant folk weren't in touch with.
Right.
I didn't feel like a real leader of my kitchen.
Yeah.
I felt like a shell of myself, but I had all these things that made it look like everything was great. Successful business, Michelin star, James Beard nominations. And writing the graphic novel really became kind of the catalyst for figuring out what was wrong and what needed to be done about it.
So how did that process change your food?
That's a great question, because I would wake up in the morning and I would meditate first thing in the day, and then I would kind of play some chess. I got addicted to chess. I had to replace my addictions.
Yeah,
it wasn't would get away from the addiction of social media. It was about replacing it, and I got into writing the story, and that was the process. It was just very transformative to kind of get kind of start to tell the story and try to understand what it was that the story needed to be and where it was going to go. And we kind of dealt with a lot with parenting issues, traveling that to just a basic day. And eventually we get in this story, we get to I feel like I'm getting a little off.
That's all right. That's all right. So this takes 3 years, so you can't build Rome in a day.
Right.
And meanwhile, you're still cooking at L, and you've made up with your team.
I wound up putting that entire team. I wound up having to fire the entire team.
Okay, so you didn't make up with them so much.
No, there was no making up. Yeah. We're right in front of guests, so we can't pretend there wasn't a possibility, and that was another reason. It was a new start.
Right.
And it really, a lot of it has been about that, is just embracing new starts over and over again.
Yeah.
Until finally you just get used to change.
This is right.
Change is normal.
This is what it is. And you haven't missed a step at L in the sense that reservations and business.
Right, that's where your question was coming about, the creative side of it. It actually opened up my cooking more. And that was the amazing part that surprised me. I felt like if I was going to be focusing on this story, it would take away my creative energy from cooking.
Right.
And it is actually only focused it. And I feel like I can get to the heart of a dish much faster, much more efficiently. And honestly, people keep coming in and saying it keeps getting better. So, I mean, I feel like I've got my thumb on the pulse of, the creative energy that is needed as a chef. And because of that, it's opened it up, and I'm able to focus more on the underlying message that people aren't getting with the food.
It's a crucial lesson probably for all of us, but particularly for culinary students. The thing that I hear from seasoned chefs, and I mean cooking maybe 10 years or something like that or more, is in essence, you could simplify it, you got to have a hobby.
Yeah.
But that oversimplifies it. Like, you need to have another focus, and it will actually feed, if you're truly a chef, if you're truly a storyteller, if you're truly a whatever you are, you're gonna do that. The world can't stop you. But this other thing, the hobby, will feed that as well.
It does. It really does. Working on the comic has made me a better chef. Like working with my cousin and seeing how Tim creates from the drawing side. To see the art of another artist is it just feeds yourself, and it's empowering. And it really, and I can't emphasize that enough as a chef, is to divert that energy into some other constructive means, that can give you more room to grow as a chef if you're not putting so much pressure on your artistry there.
And if I'd stopped you in 2015 and said, Phillip, man, you got to start meditating, you would have said, one, I don't have enough time.
Yeah.
And two, get out of my face. What, are you crazy?
So true. The only reason I started getting into it, oddly enough, was because I was going to a chiropractor, because being a chef for a long time is really bad on your physique.
Yeah.
And the chiropractor told me that I should take 20-minute Epsom baths. So I'm like, okay, the typical mind of a multitasking chef, I might as well double up meditations while I'm sitting in the bathtub. And I started, and it started simply enough. And the more I got into it, the more I realized it was just being in meditation. It just it's free from getting in trouble.
Right.
Can't get in trouble. Can't drink or party too much while I'm in a meditation. And it all it does is it just gives me more rest. So when I'm awake, I'm more alive and more ready and spontaneous and ready to react. And it's been transformative for me.
So cool, by the way. Glad you are.
Yeah. I'm a lucky guy. I have the place, I mean, living right above from where I am is helpful, you know, and having people who surround you and support you and love you, like my wife, my cousin, my kids, you know, my brother, family, mom, dad, you know, like having good support system is so important as a person.
It's so key.
You know, and your relationships, you know, no matter what you do, you know, the relationships that you maintain in life are more meaningful towards whether your life is happy or not, which is more important than any career.
Yeah, amen, yeah. So you're a strong collaborator. You're also a very strong personality. You're working with a family member who's got a lot of creative energy. I don't know his personality because we've just met today, but I can see how that could be kind of dicey. And he's in Minneapolis, you're in Chicago. So and it's like you're sending smoke signals up about really intense stuff, right? That you're both incredibly invested in. I mean, I'm working on a cookbook with my wife, and you know, I love her, but sometimes I'm like, and I know most of the time she's like, so talk about how you two got through that experience.
Right. A lot of patience and a lot of faith and a lot of belief, and in a lot of ways this comic was like our little baby, you know, and we're just like mom and dad, you know, trying to raise it and make it into this, you know, beautiful adult, complete book, you know, but in the process, there were a lot of times where we bumped heads and didn't see eye to eye, and, you know, we're both very sensitive artists, and we both, you know, can defend that sensibility with all of our energy. And there were times where we really butted heads, but, you know, I think like any partnership or relationship, you know, it's your ability to actually stay with that person in that moment of, you know, collapse. You know, that's what I think we all need, you know, and we've had to hang up the phone on each other, and then we've kind of gone right back on it, you know, and done it, you know, and fixed it, you know, because we believe, and, you know, and, you know, it's just, but there are times where there's some ups and downs, and, you know, I think the one of definitely my favorite part of this story was, you know, one of those moments. Yeah, where you were saying you translated a vision over, and what he drew was not at all. I don't want to mischaracterize it, but I think I really felt like I had done my best writing for this one page that he was doing, and it really kind of made this story and go where it did. And when I was done with it, I was like, you know, I felt like this load was off my shoulders. Like I got there, and you know, when he got to the point of writing it, like he just completely took it off to a right angle, right? Completely took it out of, like, not only just the characters changed scenes, they were in a boat all of a sudden, and it's completely not a pig, it's a giraffe, Philip, come on, clearly. And I was struggling really hard with that, you know, and I think that this is where, like, I give the chefs freedom at the restaurant to create their own dishes, and I can guide them in the right direction, but I don't want to tell them. And this is his art form. So for me to tell him that how to do it would have been wrong. So I let it go. And, you know, as it kind of came together over the next few days and the next several pages, and I gave the autonomy, it wound up like translating my words into this art that so defines what the entire book is to me. And there are almost no words in it at all. So like, no, it's the apex of the story. Right, so he took it in a completely different way, and at the same time, you know, like, made it better than what it was. Could have been just if it had not gone there. I couldn't read it any other way. It makes perfect sense now. I'm like, well, that's the best, you know, sort of drawing metaphor. Like there it all is. Well, the art is, you know, it's there for the viewer in a way to interpret it how they want, whether those are my words, or when you read the book, because I know everybody's going to buy one, you know, you're going to get that from Tim, and you're going to read it and look at it in a different way, and it hopefully will mean something else to you. You know, because it matters on the perspective as much as it does the person, you know, like putting the art forth. You know, where are you in your life when you're reading it, or, Are you a young chef? Are you going through midlife, going through turning 50? It's like it all is all perspective. A lot of perspective.
So last question about the book, and then we'll get off these chairs and we'll cook. But L.I.Ideas has always lived at a crossroads, at least as far as I perceive it. Crossroads in Chicago dining, which is one of the most evocative, provocative, and engaging cities in American cooking right now. It's replaced New York, it's replaced San Francisco, it's replaced, and there's a lot of sort of tribalism of those cities, but what has been going on in Chicago for the last, I would say, 20 years is really, ahead of the rest of the country. You stride in molecular, but you don't live there, like some of the Motos and the Lineas. You make yummy food, but you don't go deep comfort and, it's all falling apart from goodness kind of thing. You have a theater aspect,
right,
but there isn't a gimmickry.
Right.
So you release this graphic novel, this comic. How did the rest of the restaurant, that culinary world, receive it?
It's a very good question, and I don't feel like I've done the best job marketing it necessarily, and I feel like I'm certainly not taking it to social media. As tempting as that is, like I'm actually working a little bit with somebody who's putting some stuff up on social media. I wanted to get out in a very grassroots, I feel this, I take so much pride in this. I don't want to just put it out there and prostitute it out and just be shameless about selling it. I want situations like this where I can actually come and talk about it and try to get a conversation going and feel good about the book, the sale of the book. For me, I think for myself and Tim, our just getting it out and bringing it to life is really a reward in itself.
Yeah.
And this was very much a passion project, but at the same point, I want to use it now to springboard that into, furthering the message and hopefully selling some books and hopefully getting some people interested in coming to L.Ideas and to check out Tim's More Belief company and, and just, furthering life, elevating life.
I want to see an animated version of it with everyone in it, except Jon Favreau. Those of you, when you read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I don't know who would do the voices, but man, that would be great.
Got to dream big, because if you don't, reach for the stars, you're never going to get there.
Sure. Well, I know your voice, so it's hard to replace another one there. That's where I'm struggling. For the Charlie Trotter stand-in, that's a good question. And then for the Jean-Louis Paladin stand-in, I don't know.
I think maybe Charlie Sheen for Charlie Trotter.
Sure. Okay.
That temperament. You need that temperament.
That would be good. Sure.
Right.
He's winning.
Is he doing better?
I don't know. Yeah.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Winner, winner, Sheen dinner.
Let's go cook.
Cool.
So Chef insisted on changing, even though this is what he cooks in.
I
You're not going to roll with it? Okay.
This is what I'm cooking.
This is what he's cooking in his L.Ideas
thank you.
Shirt. All of you students know that you wear culinary whites such as Chef Short. Boy, that's a tongue twister right there. Such as Chef Short is wearing.
Such as Chef Short.
At L.Ideas, this is the uniform.
This is one of our uniforms. Is actually now we just wear T-shirts. Spent a lot of time working in hotels and in fancy French kitchens, and I've got kind of tired of the old whites, kitchen whites, and my wife Akiko says I have an oppositional disorder, so I have to be against everything, kind of a thing. And so that goes even against regular uniforms.
Sure.
It's kind of a disease in a way. If you look at it as an affliction, I don't come off so awful.
Right. So what are you making today? And we just have to take a moment and talk about this bowl. So Vollrath is a sponsor. They are a fantastic sponsor of the series. If they were not a sponsor, we would not have this series. This is a super dope and gorgeous insulated bowl. So just think of the things you can do with this. And they have them in many colors too. And we're going to do some cool things.
Yes, we are.
But when I found out they had those, I'm like, I need some. Yeah, we all do, quite frankly. Yeah, anyway.
For sure.
Carry on.
All right, so what we are going to be demonstrating for you guys today is our signature dish at L Ideas. It is the only course, every course on our menu comes and it goes real quickly. Very rarely will one stay for more than a month or 2 months tops. This course here is the one exception to that.
I thought you meant during dinner, like, wow, a month for one course? That's forever.
It is.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so I've always despised the idea of a signature dish. You know, the idea of a signature dish, if I say that this dish is my favorite, you know, what am I really saying about the rest of them? You know, but at the same, kind of like a kid, you never tell a kid is your favorite, right?
Yeah, it's impossible.
Right, or exactly. So anyway, this course here is definitely our signature dish, and the reason why is because it's inspired by my 2 daughters, and it's based on their love of taking French fries and dipping them inside of a Frosty or a milkshake.
So good.
Right. So
Samin Nosrat made millions of dollars of the cookbook with that exactly on the cover. Salt, fat, acid, heat, ladies and gentlemen.
There are a lot of reasons that I just love doing this dish at L. I mean, the first and foremost reason is because it's inspired by my 2 daughters.
Yeah.
And when I get up in front of the audience every night, I get to tell them that this dish is inspired by them. But a couple other reasons I love it is because there's components of it that have been inspired by other chefs. So it talks about kind of the sense of community and how, you know, the research and development done by other people kind of fits into and how we take that and do something else with it. So there's a continuation in the creative process through that. And most of all is because of the way it connects with our guests. Now, the reason and the magical thing that it does is because so many people grew up as kids in high school going out with their friends and going to fast food restaurants, taking French fries and dipping inside of Frosty or an ice cream cone or something. So when we put this in front of guests, it's more than just like, here's some ingredients and here's a take on it. You actually are able to kind of transport them to a time in their lives where it's more simple and so you actually take them out, and anytime you can transport people in the dining process, you know, a lot of times it's through taste, and you'll taste something you don't know why, but it tastes like something your grandma made. Anytime you succeed with that, it's kind of like getting a fish on the hook, you know, it's yours.
Right.
You know, all you have to do now is reel it in, you know, but it's a dish that truly connects with people, and it's kind of helped me discover cooking through connecting.
Cool. So when would this course come out during the 11 course?
It's always kind of in the middle.
Okay.
And it's a showstopper for sure. Our second variation, the one that we're going to be showing you today, is definitely a lot more visual, and you'll see the improvements made to it, but it was actually improvements through reduction. Through removing.
Take away,
So what we have here, I definitely want to show everybody the way that we used to do that, and kind of to show that off, we're going to show a short little film, do a couple pauses along the way so you can kind of see what's going on, because it's so much work that I don't want to do it anymore. All right, so can we cue up the film?
Play the video?
I'll be able to see it here.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are my 2 daughters, Talia and Noah. You see that they're in a fast food restaurant taking French fries, dipping them inside of my mouth, in the ice cream cone, and then putting them in my mouth. So here we are in a farmer's market. That's good. This is important to see because, you know, chefs always have to see a chef in a farmer's market, because we didn't get the food from a farmer's market. It's not really farm fresh. So there's the leeks. Leeks are part of it. Potatoes are part of it. There's me acting like a chef. I reinvent French fries and ice cream. There's my kids. It's a bunch of paintings, my kids. This is a restaurant over here that we're in right now. These are just some
Vanilla bean?
a vanilla bean, right? So what we're doing here is we're making an ice cream that is based on it's a potato ice cream. So that's where we're starting with this preparation. So here I'm making the anglaise, pouring hot cream into eggs. And right here I've got mashed potatoes. You see that right there? That's perfect. I'm pouring the ice cream on top of mashed potatoes. And then just combine that, go ahead. And then straining that. And now this is right when we opened and we were totally broke back then. And I used to have like an ice cream maker from like Home Depot. We've moved up to liquid nitrogen. Things are better now. All right, here we are. This is a potato leek soup that I'm making right now. Pureeing it, blending it.
Vitamix.
Passing it, right, Vitamix. I'm sure the strainer is from Volrath. Okay, right here we've got, this is the kind of the cool part of it. This was inspired by one of the chefs who was working there. Paul Kahn of Blackbird has one of his signature salads is made with his potato tuile, which one of our chefs is making right here. Go ahead. So you roll it around here and then you cut it and then you deep fry it. So we have to do one of those for every single person.
That's why only 28.
These were so much work, so frustrating. So
that was you just presenting
now we're in the service and we're about to serve it. So what we do, we got these crispy potato tuiles. This is the potato ice cream. Now we pipe it inside of the potato tuile, kind of like a cannoli. Yeah. And then we put it on top of a little bed of melted leeks, which I'm plating right now. And then that's a hot potato leek soup. So you've got the hot from the hot potato leek soup. You've got the cold from the ice cream. You got the crunchy from the potato tuile and the salty from the ice cream so it's all the elements there of the French fry and ice cream. All right. So that was our first.
So if you go to L, that will be one of your 11 courses.
No, that one is not on the menu anymore, actually.
Okay.
Okay, so that was our first version of it. And one day I was making these, we had 2 services that night, and I had to do like 60 of these, and they weren't coming off of that aluminum thing. And they just...
Yeah. There's no way to fake that. It's like it's broken or it's together.
Right, and I literally just had a meltdown. I was standing at my station. I just got done with it, and I just started crushing them. I just crushed them. I threw them. I had a hissy fit because I'm a little crybaby, and
it's like
and
the
that was
Massimo
it.
Bottura
I'm like,
moment.
F this. This is off the menu. I'm never doing this dish again. And then when I came back from that weekend I took off. I don't know where or how, or I have no recollection when this version of it came into my head, but it did. And it wound up just simply being like lightning in a milkshake glass, and I will show you how that is right now. But first I'm going to need to get the chef together to kind of get preparation so we can kind of do this all at once right now. So can we take a quick little smoke them if you got them?
You need to run into the kitchen?
Yeah, because there she is.
Yeah, there she is.
Okay, I'll be right back.
All right, we'll be able to hear you in there, just so you know.
I'm going to turn this on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I got to be hearing myself. Okay, so liquid nitrogen is very cold. It's like about 300 degrees below zero, and it freezes things obviously very instantaneously. Now, this isn't regular ice cream either, but we're going to get this started right away. So we've got this huge dewar of liquid nitrogen right here, which we're going to pour into this bowl.
You didn't know this was like a Gallagher comedy show, did you? Really?
Now we're going to get a watermelon and a sledgehammer. All right, so we got the liquid nitrogen here. And this here is ice cream, an ice cream base. Just it's really nothing more than whipped cream with vanilla and some sugar. I know I've got this here. I'm going to give this one extra charge. So basic whipped cream canister here. And so this is what we do mid-course. I'll start doing this in the background. And usually this is when we'll get people to come up to the kitchen to see what's going on, because even the most reclusive person really gets kind of intrigued when they see all this science happening back in.
Well, it's bubble, toil, and trouble. I mean, come on.
I mean, aside from the liquid nitrogen, there really aren't any fancy like molecular chemicals here, you know, and I mean, liquid nitrogen's available everywhere, isn't it? Like if you have liquid nitrogen, you can honestly get it, but if you have it, I mean, you can make this at home. Try this for your next dinner party.
You can get it at any Quick Trip. It's right between the crullers and the decaf. And the
so
stale
it kind of keeps
bananas.
going and going and going, and we get this huge kind of like structure.
It's like a whipped cream bomb.
That's, yeah, pretty much. So this is, by this time, everybody's kind of like looking back in the kitchen and seeing what's going on. And like I said, if they haven't gotten up yet, they will now. So then I'll usually flip it over one time like this. I try not to break it because it's a cool thing if we can get it all at once. Can't always, I don't think I will this time. But people always like looking at that. That's like, I don't know, like a honeycomb in space or something. Alien honeycomb. So then we have to break it all up.
So of all the demos that my 12-year-old has come along to, she's really bummed she's missing this one.
Yeah,
I guarantee.
Once a year I make this at my kids' school.
Sure.
And then,
and you're the coolest dad.
yeah, always for their birthdays.
Sure. Wow.
It's almost not fair.
We just do Bananas Foster. I'm a jerk.
Seriously, man, you got to pick it up a little bit.
Phoning it in. So 19th century.
Bring your kid to our birthday party. We'll show you how it's done.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of break this up. It takes a little bit of time, as you see, but it's still like it's kind of like such a fun process, and it's such a spectacle.
It's delicious.
That it's, you know, people get intrigued, and you know that's what we want, is we want people to be interested, so they'll come back and make the evening more fun. So
it looks like a bunch of popcorn.
And then it's fun when I get into talking about how my graphic novel has kind of helped me work out my anger issues. I show them what used to happen to me when I get angry. It was a problem. It was a real problem. All right, and that's pretty much it. Now now the rest of the dish, the French fries are actually like a thrice cooked French fries. They're cooked 3 times. It's a technique developed by Heston Blumenthal in Bray, England. Mm-hmm. And what
Fat
they do
Duck is the name of his restaurant.
Fat Duck, exactly. What they do is they cook the potatoes first in water as if you were making mashed potatoes. Then you drain them, and then you fry them once at, I think, 275, and then you drain them and freeze them, and then the last time you do them at 350, which is what we have here, and then pretty much we're ready to go. The inside of this here is a hot potato leek soup. And you know what? We're going to do one of them right in here. We're going to give this to you, Kyle, so you can kind of show off for the guests.
Okay.
How we do this.
A TV host wants to show off for the guests? I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, so this here is a hot potato leek soup, and we just put in a little in the bottom of the dish, like in the milkshake glass like this. And then what we do is we'll take this ice cream, pour it in over the top, and then we give it to the guests, and then we tell you to drop your spoon to the bottom of the glass.
All the way to the bottom.
And so, as you'll see, you go to eat it right away. It's like snap, crackle, pop. It's kind of like, because you got the hot soup with that's about 200 degrees above zero. Going into the cold liquid nitrogen, you're pushing that down into the hot soup that's about 300 degrees below zero. What do you get? It's like a combustion. So it's basically a reverse fajita. So now all of a sudden, now we got the same thing, and as you see, it really tastes like you're digging in ice cream with French fries.
It's amazing.
And as you eat it, it kind of changes, and it takes on. It's just got this whole new complexity, and it's much easier for us to do. And it was just kind of like a win-win. So,
That's so great.
It's kind of weird when you kind of aren't afraid to rip something up and do it and rethink it. A lot of times you come up with a better answer. And I think that working on the graphic novel with my cousin, there was one point where we just kind of ripped up the ending and like, let's start it again. And the end result, and I'm sure he'll tell you the same, is we wound up with a much more immersive, complete story. And now this here, it's been on the menu now for about 5 years like this, and this will never come off the menu.
I feel like I'm sitting in the parking lot of Cops. Eating vanilla custard and stabbing my fries into it, which is a thing we do as a family because, well, one, if we don't have a certain amount of Cops ingested into our system on a regular basis,
I'm with you
we
on
lose
that.
some of our superpowers. But two, that's an incomplete experience if we don't have that sweet, creamy dairy egg combo with
and
salty.
then we just do we have plastic spoons? We do spoons. Let's wait.
Let's wait. All right.
Yeah. Wow, that's really great. That's really great.
We do a little spoon more. And
You're gonna like this.
awesome. If we want, do we have spoons? These are forks.
There's forks.
Okay. All right. It's just if we want to pass these around.
Yep.
Take it maybe from this side.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Well, just load them back on the tray.
Or, okay, that could work too. Yeah, of course. Okay. If you fill up the soup. If somebody, you got that. Okay.
Yep. Here we go.
I can't get over that.
Yeah. I think it's all went into the tank.
How is it, those of you who've had it? Right? Isn't it crazy? It really is. It's French fries stabbed into that good ice cream.
One of the most magnificent things about the course is watching everybody. So everybody's kind of come to the restaurant with this sense of abandon and this little bit of fear, like I said, right? When everybody gets that course and they dip this spoon to the bottom of the glass, it's like, whoop, you snap. And then it's like, oh, now it's like the floodgates are open and everybody can have a good time and there's never... there's so many smiles after people see what happens to it. Like we didn't get that with the first one. There was no, aside from, making everybody enjoy the nostalgia of it, there was no extra spectacle. And this one, obviously.
With the licking their plates course, you didn't get that?
Yeah, you did. We did, but this more, because there's a shock factor with the nobody expects the explosion.
Right. No question.
We have to make some more here.
Well, I think true to the Eater headline, no one in America is cooking quite like Chef Phillip Foss. Certainly no one in Madison is eating like you tonight for having been at this demo.
Thank you, Kyle.
It's true. It's true. So if you were going to book a reservation for L Ideas,
right,
you would go to the website.
Right.
You would go to the reservations page. It's very easy. There's a prompt right away. You'll pay for your dinner in advance. And you'll plan your reservation for the time and the date, and then you just show up. And when you leave, you leave. You don't have to bring 20s to lay on the table or whatever for the.
Like, I mean, it's the whole idea of like how many times, like we wanted to be like a dinner party, but anytime you put a check down at the end of dinner, it's kind of like it's not a dinner party. You just tricked me into thinking it was a dinner. It obviously is not a dinner party, but there is something so. Dirty about exchanging money at the end of a dinner.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Let's just get it out of the way in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then get on with having a good time.
We all know what's going to happen here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not pretend.
You never get two the same. This one's like a brain, like an alien brain. I heard somebody say that. Yeah.
I wish I had kept my phone with me just to take a picture.
Should I do the dragon again?
I could just see the Tribune headline now. Notable Chicago chef hospitalized.
Liquid nitrogen, swallowing liquid nitrogen.
For sinus injury from swallowing liquid nitrogen at daughter's birthday party.
The most absurd loss of a restaurant
Yeah.
chef.
Those of you who haven't tried it yet, first of all, it's coming. Second of all, I promise it's worth the wait. Thirdly, like, how lucky are you? No one else in Madison is eating like this tonight, I guarantee. And now you will have had one of the 11 courses at L Ideas. You just have to make the trip down for the 10 more.
That's right.
So if I lived above where I work, I would be late all the time.
I am.
I would be so,
I take so many breaks I kind of feel guilty sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it.
Right.
If I'm not taking advantage of it,
It's true.
I shouldn't have it.
Yeah.
You never get rid of salespeople. I've done it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's true. They know you're there.
Yep.
How often does the liquid nitrogen salesperson stop by? Once a year?
Once a week. We go through a fair amount of it.
So if we want to open up for questions now, yeah, if anyone has a question. And then after that, books are available. Philip and Tim will be signing them. We'll have them right over here.
Just
Do
vanilla.
not go home without Life in L.
Yep.
So,
No eggs, actually.
Chef,
Just whipped cream with vanilla and sugar.
we've got our first question.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
First of all, thank you so much for coming up and doing all of this amazingness.
Thank you for coming out.
So I know a lot of customers wish they would be being approached by people who really want you to expand or open another one or try a new concept or go back to food trucks or whatever. So what does growth, not necessarily expansion, but growth and the future look like for you at this point?
It's a great question, and thank you for asking. I really believe very strongly that L Ideas is going to be my one and only restaurant. You know, there's definitely been some interest, and you know, there have been some kicking tires and stuff with some things, but you know, like, it's really, L Ideas is so much a signature restaurant of mine that if I'm not there, like, I don't feel right. You know, I do feel like people are paying money, a lot of money to come, and I feel a great responsibility for that. And if I open up other restaurants, then I'm not going to be able to be there like that. And I can only be one place at one time. And for my own peace of mind and sanity, you know, I see too many people opening up a second place expecting that that's just going to be as successful as a first place. I'm happy doing what I'm doing, and I'm maybe not making $1 million, but you know, I'm making a living, and I love what I do. So I don't have any plans to open up another restaurant. Yeah.
It'd have to be FL Diaz anyway, it's like Flel Diaz.
Right.
That doesn't work. Yeah. Any other questions? And if anyone has any questions for Tim, too. Tim, first of all, before we ask a question, Tim, can you
Where'd
come
he
up?
go?
He's right there.
Oh, there he is.
He's eating and is munching, and yeah. Can we?
Any more?
I would like to applaud this guy. Maybe you'll join me.
Should we give him a mic?
I'll talk into your face.
There we go. Yeah.
You need to ask me. That's just that.
We can do that. But there's a question here first, either for Tim or Phil.
My question is, for someone who is in culinary school,
Uh-huh.
what is your best piece of advice?
Best piece of advice. It's a great question. You know, I really think that the hardest thing to do as a cook is to have the patience to find a good place and to stick with it for a long period of time. Because it takes a lot longer to learn actually the ins and outs of cooking than you'd probably think, or maybe that's even been told. But you know, you need to work your way around stations, and if you can find yourself a place with a strong chef and a good team spirit, you know, stick with it for like at least a year or two, so you can work your way around and learn everything about how they do things, because there's so much more to being a chef than just cooking. But it still takes a long time to really learn how to cook. So be patient, stick with it, and don't give up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Has been the community reaction to L Ideas or perception, since maybe people that don't live there have been coming into a neighborhood they wouldn't normally go to?
Right. What I feel like, I feel like even though we're like 8.5 years old, I still believe that we fly under the radar quite a bit. You know, I obviously not on social media so much anymore, and you know, we've kind of fallen off of the mainstream conversation maybe about, you know, the hot new restaurants in town. But that said, I would say that, what's your question? I feel like I missed your question a little bit here.
It's the community in Douglas Park that
Right.
isn't used to perhaps high-level dining, and maybe not used to the people that frequent your restaurant. How have they accepted the restaurant, or how do you, I guess,
right.
endear yourself to the community members?
Yeah, there isn't really so much of a community right where L is. It's actually like on a dead-end street, and there's really no inlet or outlet to it. So we actually are more like an urban oasis, really, than we are like in a bad neighborhood or close, you know, with our neighbors. I mean, we have a old-fashioned juke joint on the corner that is called Mama's Southern-style cooking, and it gets rowdy. But people, like, we're friends with them, and they're nice, and you know, I think there's definitely, nobody gives us any grief or anything. And I think our guests like being the fact that it's in the middle of nowhere, and people talk about it. I think it's an experience, most importantly, that people are willing to go tell their friends because it's so different. And so that's been a huge aspect of our success, is having something worth talking about. And
it's really only 10 minutes from downtown. Like
that's true.
The Chicago, that when you say I went to Chicago, that everybody imagines you went to, it's 10 minutes. Which, I mean, you know, so it's not this insurmountable sort of Chicagoland destination. It just, it wasn't probably on your normal route, and certainly not to a dead-end street, because that's generally not how most people roll. But yeah, it's not, you know, too far off the grid, I guess. Another question.
Do you have a personal comfort food dish?
I love burgers, cheeseburgers. You're talking Cops is like one of my all-time favorite burgers for sure.
So good.
Junk food, you know, like crap. Like I don't eat what I like. I'll eat table scraps of what I prepare for others, and that's awesome. But like when I make something for myself, it's a grilled cheese sandwich, a pizza. I'll order in more than anything.
Which
I'm sorry to disappoint
truth
y'all.
Of so many chefs. You were talking about Jean Boucher, and that reminded me of the story of Jean Joho, who's like, you know, something he was at. I didn't know, hadn't met him yet, but he said, you know what I had for dinner last night? And everyone was like, cereal and milk. He's like, cereal and milk. Yeah, I had cold cereal and milk because I got home at 1 o'clock after putting out all this great food.
It's a little bit of an irony for sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I mean, it's like, does a doctor go home and read medicine books, or like, you know, like
medical journals?
I mean, you want to get away. I want to get away from it when I'm not in it.
Yeah. Whose pizza do you like in Chicago?
I like Pequod's for the. I mean, it's not really pizza. It's more like a stuffed lasagna pizza. You know, the Chicago style anyway. But Pequod's makes a great one.
All right. It's a more important question, really. Not to belittle your question, but like pizza. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I have the microphone. I As a culinary student here at MHEC, I just want to say thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
It was fascinating and interesting and inspiring. And I was just wondering if you could share with us maybe some of the other courses that like we
Sure.
get if we.
Oh, absolutely.
You want another demo?
No, not a demo, just a verbal.
I mean, we have a lot of, our menu, like I said, changes quite a bit. Right now, some of the highlights for me is an agnolotti, which is like a stuffed pasta that's with parsnip and a duck. And that's just a delicious course. I'm doing a halibut that's poached in a Dijon mustard beurre blanc that's served with Waldorf accompaniments.
Cool.
That's really, I really am happy with that. We've got a baked Alaska right now, a sweet potato pie.
Do you use the stuff for the baked Alaska too?
No.
No, because you could go that way, but
Well, we use it to actually make the ice cream, but it's not like it's more of a traditional ice cream style than this for sure.
I love that. So baked Alaska, you all know what it is, right? With the meringue, and then they put it in the broiler over the ice cream. I mean, that was just so avant-garde at one point. And I love that it's come full circle.
Yeah, I think what was always tends to come back, and I love bringing up that nostalgia because in today's world with modern cuisine so much, like I feel like I have to be an ambassador for the food that used to be, you know, forward pushing. So like bringing back things like baked Alaska that's got this feel of like an old school dining room with flambe and you know, even Waldorf salad speaks to like luxuriousness, you know, and this old school, you know, innocence and comfort and
and a good Waldorf. I mean, there's a lot of bad ones out there.
Yeah.
Like it's so about balance. It's so about just the right size, even of the ingredients.
So much about that is true. Like balance and like making food taste good is really not as complicated as you think. It's really you got to focus on seasoning things properly, tasting each step of the way, and then, you know, like letting the rest of it take care of itself. You know, we tend to overcomplicate, but it is so much about balancing the seasoning.
Is that why you do the dragon thing, to taste the cream right away?
No, it's just to show off.
Oh, okay. Blew that one.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Another question up here. While we're waiting for your question and the mic to get up here, I have a question for you, Tim.
Yeah.
And you can have this microphone. I want to know, what the hell is the process like in your head to edit out and then what to expand on for doing something like that or for L Ideas?
For Life and Al, you mean the book?
Life and Al, I mean, yeah.
The editing, where is this attached? How far does this go?
If he starts squeaking in a second.
So, well, it's always mostly like kind of what I have time for. Catching up with what you guys are saying and trying to get it down and fast enough is really a problem. So I often just end up kind of wherever I'm finishing one, then I kind of like recall the last like 2 minutes of what's gone on while I was drawing. And then I kind of am able to like, it's almost like I rewind back into my archive of listening parts and then pull one like, that would have been fun. Why don't I play with that a little? And then that's being drawn while I hear some more thoughts. But for the book, how much time we got?
We're planning.
For the book, it's a lot more selective. We're working hard. We're writing and we're rewriting and we're writing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think when you draw comics, you're just drawing from the beginning. But as Josh knows, I wouldn't start drawing until we had something I felt was worth drawing.
Yeah.
It drove him crazy.
It did, and then finally, when we finally got around to it, and then we really kind of ripped it back up and kind of dug back in, and I think that's when it became
20 pages in.
Yeah.
And I came down for some deep dish pizza, or you came up for some pizza. We had
Right.
pizza in both times. The only 2 times we saw each other, we had pizza. So
I think
it was
that's
right,
true.
Actually.
Yeah.
Deep dish in Chicago, and then some kind of fancy pants thing with beets in Minneapolis. So.
That's right.
But we really had to kind of like get to a point in the middle where we saw like the much more potential. We were kind of like, there's more here. Then we're gonna make a small comic at first, and then let's just go for it. Let's make a whole book. This might be the only time, with 4 kids between us, that we're ever gonna get a chance
Right.
to do this. So we
Yeah.
kind of ran with the momentum there.
It is. It really was a process of kind of being patient and learning how. Like this was a genre that's completely out of my set. So to learn how to write it, and I think Tim really showed a lot of patience, and especially in those beginning stages. And it was hard to see, and I wanted him to go on it so we could get it going, but. It really made a lot of sense, and it put a lot of onus on me to kind of come and bring it all together and make it a story that you'd want to draw. And it really is kind of like a beautiful, almost miracle that it actually we wound up getting anything out. More or less something that I'm so proud of. Like I feel like you guys had my signature dish, but I'm so much more proud of this graphic novel because of how long and how much effort it took to get there.
Yeah, cool. Oh, thank you. Your question, sir.
Yeah, since the food truck was so profitable and fun, whatever happened?
Well, it wasn't very profitable, but it was probably doing better than I thought. But I had a bookkeeper who was kind of taking all the cash, and so we never really had a fair shake. It could have kept going, but at the same point, I was just burning the candle at both ends at that point, and it allowed me to take. It was like a gorilla on my back at that point. It was just so much easier to let go of that and just focus completely on making Elle as good as it could be.
Well, and your life never would have taken the direction that it has. American food wouldn't have taken the direction that it has if you just kept selling sweaty balls.
It's interesting, it's interesting, but it's an interesting way of looking at it, because I do feel like the restaurant experience that we're putting forward, and I hear it from people that they consider me an inspiration. I mean, it's humbling. It's really big to hear that, and it feels great, but I do consider that a responsibility.
Right.
And I want to be doing this for a really long time. I want to be working with Tim for a really long time. I want to be cooking at Elle for a really long time. And, I got to be really careful about how I negotiate that. And, because the ego, if everybody talks after the dinner about how great dinner is, it's hard not to get your head blown up. And, ego blown up.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound right.
I know what you mean. Another question.
Yeah, I think everybody does,
there's
but whatever.
One back. Yeah? One back here.
The question I have is, first of all, I'm a culinary student, and I'm a little bit older, seasoned, can I say?
Mm-hmm.
And so clearly you have a very unique path that you took, and it's very different than the normal path, and yet here you are, an amazing chef. So the question I have for you is, because I think that it's universal that we all kind of want to belong and be doing the things that we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
And yet I can see clearly you did not follow those rules. So what really kept you centered and focused on those things when everyone else is saying you're crazy? What are you thinking?
Great question.
Honestly, that is a great question, and I kind of think a lot of that comes from my youth, and I think, honestly, I feel like I know I got some abandonment issues from my time as a kid, and I think, having a strong sense of loyalty and belief, that I'm more than enough, again, having a high school guidance counselor tell my mom that I wasn't going to amount to anything, and was a fuel, so I wound up getting fueled by, failure, and there were times where I actually got out of cooking for a little while when I was in New York, and I started selling wine at a wine store as a salesperson, and that's when I got the call from Le Cirque and got back into it. So a lot of my success just came from grabbing an opportunity when it came, and then just knowing and sticking with it, and growing from it, I guess. But a lot of it is luck, but it's half meeting the luck. I mean, I wish it could be something that could translate for more people, to be able to find something like I have. But like half the day I wake up and I'm like, how the hell did I wind up with this? But it worked, and I think the fact that this narrative worked for me, I mean, like your narrative can work for you, but you really do have to kind of believe it and also change with it, because you can't stick. I'm not the same person today that I was when I was 20. I've actually had to accept a lot of things, make a lot of changes, and honestly, I only feel happy now as a person, like now, like I'm just starting to find my happiness. So it's a lot of loneliness, yeah.
Well, thank you, Chef.
Thank you guys so
Thank
much
you,
for being
artists.
here. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you to Madison College. Thank you to this terrific
Chefs.
AV team. Thank you to Chef
Thank you.
Short and his team. Thank you to Volrath sponsoring the series. Thank you to all of you for being here, the whole damn city of Madison.